Hey, Chris Sider here, founder of Ex-Boyfriend Recovery. Today we're going to be talking about why your ex is playing games with you. But I want to stop you really quick before you continue on this video and first say that if you're new to this process and you want your ex back, the first thing you should always be doing is figuring out if you have a chance of getting your ex back. Luckily for you, I put together a special quiz on my website, www.exboyfriendrecovery.com, that's going to answer this exact question for you. All you have to do is simply complete the free quiz. Now, if you're interested in taking this quiz and figuring out if you have a chance of getting your ex back, simply look in the description link below this YouTube video, click on the link you see there. It's going to take you to a page that's going to ask you a lot of questions about you, your ex, and your time together. Based on how you answer those questions, we're actually going to run it through an advanced algorithm based on my experience and what I've seen with other people and other success stories, and give you a score that will tell you what kind of chance you have of getting your ex back. So again, if you're interested in taking that quiz, simply look in the description link of this YouTube video, click on the blue link you see there, and it's going to take you to where you need to be. All right, let's get to the video.
All right, so why is your ex playing games with you? This is a topic that I get asked a lot of times. And for the record, playing games can be anything from having an ex that's hot and cold, having an ex that's giving you mixed signals. We're going to talk about how you diagnose that and actually why an ex does that. If you want information on what to do if you're found in that situation, my recommendation is actually to stop by our website and pick up our book, which you can find in the description of this YouTube video. But for now, let's just continue and do this presentation so that you can actually understand why your ex is playing games with you. Now, the first thing I'd like to talk to you about is the anatomy of playing games. What does that look like? And really the thing I like to talk to people about is really when you're looking at an ex who's playing games with you, it's kind of like a plot twist in a story. So the definition of a plot twist in a story is an unexpected development in a book, film, or television program, right? The key word there being unexpected. So plot twists are defined by expectations, meaning you've seen enough of a type of movie to understand how the movie's going to go. You've kind of understand the tropes a little bit. And rather than going and sort of having the expected outcome, something unexpected occurs. The same thing really applies here to when your ex is playing games with you or when they're giving you these kind of mixed signals. Oftentimes it's defined by the expectations of what's going to occur. You go on a date with your ex, everything goes great. You're kissing, you're hugging, you're holding hands. It seems like, hey, you're on your way to getting back together. And then what happens? They treat you like someone that they don't like, or they treat you like someone who they're really not interested in. Sometimes they'll tell you that they love you and they treat you like someone that they don't love. Basically, they engage in a set of behaviors that lead you to believe you're going to go to this expected outcome when in fact an unexpected outcome occurs. It's a plot twist in your own life. Now, the thing you need to understand about exes who are playing mind games is that in your ex's mind, they're not playing mind games. That's kind of weird, but if you really think about it, and since we're kind of going with the story analogy, let's stick with that. One thing that a good story always needs is a villain, right? And I think nowadays, when people write villains, they write them the wrong way. They write them as these very evil characters that really don't have any kind of human motivations or anything like that. And that's wrong because that's really not, human behavior. See, a great villain, or in my opinion, what makes a great villain, I promise this does relate to what I'm trying to teach you. In my opinion, what makes a great villain is the villain is the hero in their own mind. And probably the best example I've ever seen of this is actually a Japanese story called Berserk, where this guy right here, who's named Griffith, well, he is actually the villain of the story. Now, the interesting thing is this is a medieval story called Berserk that he's the villain of. And spoiler alert, I'm about to spoil a lot of the good parts of Berserk here. The interesting thing about Griffith is he looks almost angelic and he looks almost like the good guy. And then you have our protagonist. Our protagonist is named Guts. Now, Guts looks kind of evil, right? But this is actually the good guy. Now, the two of these characters form a friendship at the beginning of the show or the book or what have you. and they fight in this mercenary band together, and they're moving up the ranks, right? Now, what ends up happening is Griffith ends up getting captured and ends up getting tortured and crippled for life. Now, when Guts, our protagonist, hears about this, he goes and saves Griffith. But the problem is there's a lot of bad feelings there because guess what? Griffith is crippled. He doesn't feel so good. And so Griffith actually was gifted with this funny looking egg, this really gross looking egg now that I think about it. And this egg is called a crimson behalit. Now this crimson behalit, if it's given to an owner, it means that they're going to eventually become a demon king. Some set of events is going to occur to cause them to turn into a demon. Now what ends up happening is Griffith, when he's crippled, is somehow comes into contact with this thing and it triggers an eclipse. And this eclipse is like the worst thing you can possibly imagine. And I get you're sort of like, what the heck does this have to do with the Exes? It will apply, I promise you. Now, the interesting thing is that I'm not going to tell you what happens in the eclipse because I need to keep this PG-13 and there's a lot of really messed up things that happen here. But ultimately what it settles down to is Griffith, this guy who's been crippled and had all these horrible things happen to him, sacrifices all of his friends in order to become some demon king. Now that's kind of messed up, right? It's a despicable act, but here's the thing. For him and his character, it makes sense. He becomes the villain, but what other choice did he have? He was sort of stuck in this situation where he's crippled. He's probably going to die if he doesn't do this. In a weird way, he's awful and he's turning into a demon king. He's sacrificing all of his friends and condemning them to a horrible death, but he's doing it for himself. And I think that's the thing you need to understand. Human beings, we're very self-interested, and oftentimes we're going to do what we think is best for ourselves. And in our own minds, or in your ex's mind, they're not going to view themselves as tricking you or playing games. They're going to view themselves as just furthering their position, much like the villain of that story, right? Now, that still doesn't necessarily explain why or what causes them to actually give you these mixed signals or play these games. And for that, I'd actually like to point to the fact that the internal narrative that goes on in their head actually causes these mixed signals. So what do I mean by that? Well, think of it like this. Let's say that you go on a date, and throughout your date, and hold on, I don't want you to see that yet. Throughout your date, things seem to be going great. You've hugged, you've talked about all sorts of really, really emotional and interesting things. You feel like if a connection's building there, you've kissed. And your ex has even said that he's thinking about getting back together with you maybe. So his set of behaviors or his words have led you to believe a certain expected outcome is going to occur. And then you leave him alone for the night or something, and his internal narrative takes hold. And the internal narrative starts telling him all sorts of stuff. Well, they did have that really annoying habit. Or, yeah, I really didn't like when they flirted with a lot of other people. Do I really want a serious relationship? I kind of enjoy being not being tied down. Sorry, I almost misread that. I kind of enjoy not being tied down. And eventually their internal narrative changes that expected outcome into the unexpected outcome. And that's where a lot of mind games or playing games comes into play, because I honestly think your ex isn't aware that they're doing it, because in their own mind, hey, they're just sort of following their internal narrative. Now, the interesting thing about this is you're probably sitting there and wondering, well, why wouldn't they just tell me this stuff? Why wouldn't they just talk to me about the fact that they didn't like that I flirted with a lot of other people? Why didn't they just tell me that they didn't want a serious relationship? Well, think of it like this. This internal narrative is telling them hundreds of things. And I only put the very dumbed down, very basic things that an internal narrative can say. What about those things that they would never utter a word of in their life? Things that are sure to hurt your feelings. Maybe something about the way you looked. Maybe something about the way that they felt when they were with you that they don't want you to take offense to. Things that they know for a fact would hurt your feelings. They're not going to tell you, but that stuff is in there and it can take hold. And that is why your ex could be playing games. It's not so much that they're doing it to be spiteful to you. They're doing it to be a villain to you. In their own mind, they're the hero of their own story, like the example I gave. Right? Even though they're doing awful things potentially to you, where they're ignoring you or seemingly playing games, I think most exes don't come with the intention of playing games. I think you just need to understand human beings are self-interested by nature. And if you understand that, you can understand how this internal narrative can take root and how it can really force us to go into an opposite, unexpected direction. And that is why, or really, that's why your ex is giving you mixed signals or playing games or anything like that.